So let's go to the third plague again. Remind ourselves what we're talking about. This is the plague that will have the pollution come upon the world. And we'll see here, as the elder enunciates and talks about, he says that we will see what's implied in this scriptural passage is we'll see vulnerable water supplies abound. Right? It talks about the internal inland water supplies being corrupted. Third part of the rivers. It fell upon a third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. The name of the star is called Wormwood. We said the third part, which is bitterness, right? So bitterness, poison. And many men died by reason of the waters because they were made bitter. All right. So water supplies abound that are going to be vulnerable or polluted. And he says, let's look at the city of Larissa, where we're sitting here today. As many cities around the world, we have one source, basically a river that comes through and gives us our water. It's not even underground, it's above ground. At least it was then. And so it could easily be contaminated, he said. And what would we do? What would we do if all of our water was contaminated? This is a strong possibility today. It's easily accomplished. If some evil-minded person wanted to put everyone into a frenzy and have many people die and have many people, panic and then have them vulnerable and then be more apt to submit, right? Because there are powers in this world always. We've seen it in the 20th century. We're going to see it again in the 21st, no doubt, that want to have large millions upon millions of people submit to them, to a small group of elite, whether it was in communism or whether it was in any other kind of totalitarian system. And capitalism is a spiritual totalitarianism, to be sure. It is about control in a few people's hands. And so we can easily see that how vulnerable humanity is to the evil intentions of certain people today with the technology and the ability to poison massive amounts of drinking water, whatever it might be. So this is a strong possibility. We're talking about things like industrial waste also, atomic bombs, chemical warfare. All these things can be imagined very easily for us today to bring about the destruction of massive amounts of drinking water and all the rest. And he says the damage would be likely irreversible. And likely the waters would be polluted to the end of history. He says also, we see these things in our daily life. This was back in the 80s in Greece. We see already then toxins abound. He said we have nylon and plastic used to preserve our food, he says, and we're told that these things may even enter into our food. We end up eating them. It goes into our bloodstream, and these things are toxin. They create cancers and all the rest. I mean, there's how much more today do we have things like that in our society than he did in the 80s, and yet he was still seeing that. He said we could go back. We could theoretically go back to glass and clay to avoid this kind of way of life, which is this toxins in our society. But these things are fragile, they're expensive, and we're not going to go back. That's just the reality. We haven't gone back.